House of Lords is a cornerstone of your new politics, reforming it. And given that Mr. Brown has indicated that Messrs. Hoon, Byers and Hewitt will not be going into the House of Lords, should there in fact be an end to the automaticity of cabinet, ex-cabinet ministers, front benchers from all parties going into the House of Lords? And given there's a whole host of them queuing up to go in the aftermath of this, the biggest election in which there'll be a clear-out in the House of Commons, should there not be a moratorium on all MPs going into the House of Lords until the thing is itself reformed?
Well, of course, the obvious answer is the whole thing should be scrapped. I mean, it's an absurd anachronism that we have a legislative chamber that helps, you know, form the rules and the laws of the land that we all have to obey by, and it's stuffed full of people who've basically done favours to other politicians.
It won't be scrapped. I'm asking.
Well, no, well, I'm
moratorium right now for any MPs to go into the House of Lords until the thing is reformed.
Well, I'm not as pessimistic as you. I genuinely think that we might be much, much closer to finally scrapping the House of Lords, directly electing it than you suggest. I think if we get the kind of outcome that we're pushing for in the general election, then the days of the House of Lords in its unreformed structure, whatever the tweaks that have been introduced over the last few years, will be over, and we'll fight. Well, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I never quite know what the Tories say. They keep changing from one day to the next. But the last time I heard, I think they said they do agree. Even they are no longer defending the indefensible. Even they are saying that the House of Lords should be elected, at least in sort of in a majority way. So, no, I think what I'm really focusing, you know, my sights on is a wholesale reform of the House of Lords. It is wholly indefensible in the way that it is presently formed. David.
David Hughes, PA. You've just said that the link between the number of votes and the number of seats in the present electoral system is fairly tenuous. The Black Cab dossier says that you've so far come up with no convincing answers on the hung Parliament question. So which is it, seats or votes?
So I've always said I think the party with the most votes and seats, even if it doesn't have an outright majority, has got a clear mandate to seek to govern, either on its own or with other parties. What you're inviting me to speculate on is if you have a sort of photo finish, a hair-splitting difference between the parties, with one party who's got more votes, more seats, do I recognise that that might happen? Yes, I do. Am I, uniquely in British politics, going to try and pretend I'm sort of Nostradamus and I can somehow predict these outcomes and then predict exactly how everyone's going to react? Of course not. What I can predict, and what you are entitled to ask me about, is firstly just to be open about the fact, which you know, other leaders just don't even seem to want to acknowledge, that in that situation, the message from the British people is that they want politicians to talk to each other. And there's nothing wrong, it seems to me, with saying, of course politicians should talk to each other. In fact, I think there are a number of big issues these days where it would be better for politicians to talk to each other and put people before politics for once. The coming clean about the structural deficit and how to deal with it, dealing with public sector pensions, dealing with long-term care for the elderly. Those are just some cases where I think pretty well, whatever the result of the election, even if someone has an outright majority, it would be a good thing for politicians to talk to each other. But, you know, that is a decision. Driving us sort of to talk to each other is a decision for you, for the voters, not for me to sort of second-guess or short-circuit right now. And the second thing is, again, I think that I'd be much more open about this than David Cameron or Gordon Brown. In that situation, what you want to know now is what our priorities are going to be. And our priorities are going to be the pupil premium and fairness in education, tax reform, fairness in the tax system, political reform, including total reform of the House of Lords, and, of course, the issue that we talked about yesterday, which has now received had such sort of thumping confirmation in the report from the IMF, taxing the banks, splitting them up, reforming our economy so it never again becomes a plaything for a small clique of financiers in the City of London. Allegra.
Just to follow up on John's question, I think that the Tories have said that House of Lords reform is a third-term issue for them, which is
have they?
8 years hence.
Well, another reason why they shouldn't be in power.
Well, that's the first bit. And then the second bit is that recently they voted against getting rid of hereditary peers.
All right.
So is either of those two things acceptable? And therefore, which of the two parties are you closest to on House of Lords reform?
Well, I'm closer to anyone who agrees with the case we've been making for, as I say, about a century now, which is that it's an aberration. It's totally preposterous that we have a second chamber, which is basically a sort of plaything for political patronage. If that existed in other countries that were applying to the European Union, we would be saying to them, sorry, you can't have that because it doesn't conform to European standards of democracy. Yet for some reason, because it has the whiff of ermine about it, we think it's okay. It's a democratic outrage and it should be scrapped and replaced in its entirety. One more, I'm afraid. Mike.
Mike Sargent, BBC News. Your new profile will presumably bring with it offers of money and help. Just give us an update on party...
Are you offering?
No, I've got nothing to offer.
No.
Just give us an update on party funding, and have you received any donations of more than £10,000 during this campaign?
I should think we have, but I genuinely don't know, but I'm sure we can give you the...
You're promising to cap donations at £10,000?
Yes, we think there should be a complete change in funding, but of course it needs to be applied to all parties. I mean, the vast majority of our donations that I think we've received over the last week or so has been a very, very sharp increase in small donations, not least online donations. But I'm very happy, of course, as we always are, to publish in full our the details of our funding arrangements. Thanks very much. Thanks.